All right, what's up, everybody? It's Hutch here, and this is your Module 3 Integer and Rational Number Practice Test. Remember, you cannot use a calculator for this practice test or for the test. You can use, though, your fraction decimal chart, so make sure you have that handy in Notability. If you don't, it is on the main page in Schoology for our course. So let's go through here. You're just going to have to think through a lot of your orders of operation stuff. Remember your tricks with adding integers. You know, we sing the song, same sides, add and keep, that kind of thing. And then with multiplying and dividing, you have your love to hate type scenarios. So let's go ahead and tackle this as a good review for your test. Your test is exactly the same other than some different numbers. Okay, so if you're good with this, you're going to be good for the test. All right, here we go. Number 1. This is lesson 1. You have to show all your work for everything, okay? Because I'm actually going to give you the answer for a lot of these, so I'll be looking for the work itself. All right, we have order of operations says I can do these in any order. I'm going to take care of the negatives first. So negative 11 plus negative 5, negative 16, bring down the plus 10. Different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger. So 16 minus 10 is going to be a negative 6. And there we go. That's number 1. Let's go to number 2. A football team lost 34 yards on their first play. So losing is a negative. Remember our hint with making a note about that. And then they lost another 8 yards on their next play. What integer represents the total change in yards? Okay, so we have a negative 34, and then another negative 8 occurred. So what is the total change in yards? Well, we have a total change of 34 plus 8. So you have negative 42 shows the total change in yards. Okay, from the first play along with the second play. All right, let's go ahead to number 3. Okay, we have a KFC situation, so keep, flip, change. So we have a negative 12 plus 8, and so that leaves us at a negative 4. Okay, all right. Different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. What is the distance between negative 132 and negative 78 on a number line? This is from lesson 2. And this one, remember, we have to take the difference of those and then their absolute values. So this is something that we haven't done in a while, and you are going to need to maybe look back at that and remember. And so we have a negative 132 minus a negative 78, okay? And we're going to take the absolute value of those, okay? Because we just want to know the answer of this, because we're asking the distance between. It has to be a positive answer, okay? How far apart are they, okay? And so KFC, okay, and we have different sign, subtract. So we have 132 minus 78, keep the sign of the bigger, but it's in absolute value. And so we have 12, and so this is 4, 0, we have 12, that's 5. Okay, so we have a negative 54, okay, but really the absolute value difference is 54. Okay, and so there is our official answer. Okay, so you just have to remember for that one, we're finding the difference between the two, but always taking the absolute value because we want a positive amount. Okay, so you find the difference and then absolute value it. All right, here we go. Some good, just simple order of operations. Multiplication first. Negative times negative is a positive, times the 2, and we end up with 18. And there we go. Okay, number 6, we have evaluating. You have to plug in and substitute. So we have a negative 3 times y, which is negative 1, times z, which is negative 2, and that is squared. We know exponents, according to GermDOS, goes first, And my recommendation to you is always pull this out. So we have a -2 times a -2 is a +4. And then we have a -1 and a -3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our next, which is -3 times -1 in order from left to right, even though it doesn't really matter because it's all multiplication, which is commutative, but here we go. So we have -3 times negative is a positive times 4, and we are left with an answer of 12. Okay, all right, let's go to number 7. We have 30 divided by -2. This is my love to hate, so we're going to end up being negative, so I'm going to mark that down right away. Half of 30 is 15, and so there we go, but it's a -15. Okay, number 8. A submarine descends to a depth of 300 feet below sea level. Okay, so that's below sea level, so this is where I mark my -300 in 6 minutes. At this rate, what integer represents the change in feet of the submarine's position in 1 minute? So remember, anytime we have this ratio, I have 300 feet per 6 minutes, and I want to know per 1 minute, we're coming up with a unit rate. So this is a unit rate question. Okay, something from old modules that we're now doing in here. So we have 300 feet per 6 minutes. Okay, and the question is, how many feet in 1 minute? Okay, and so x is our feet. We know that to solve proportions, we cross multiply the x first. And so I have 6x equals -300. I want to get x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 6. And we're left with x equals, and you can sort of think through this, 6 times what would get me 300? Well, 6 times 5 would get me 30, so 6 times 50 would get me 300, but it is going to be negative, okay? So it's -50 feet per minute, okay? So it says at this rate, let's go back to the question, what integer represents the change in feet in 1 minute? -50, okay? And so there we go, okay? All right, number 9. We're getting a little bit more complex here. This is lesson 5, okay? Order of operations says we do our grouping first, so -20 divided by 10. Negative divided by a positive is always going to be a negative, so we have -2 times 2 minus 4. Order of operations says that we're going to do our multiplication first. So this is a -4 minus 4, KFC, and we have -4 plus a -4 is a -8. And there we go. All right, let's go on to number 10. Evaluate the expression A equals a -2, B equals 2, C equals -4. So let's go ahead and plug this in. So we have A is -2, so I need to be writing -2, put it in parentheses because the whole negative is getting squared. And this is over 2 cubed minus C is -4 plus B is 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this together. Okay, so I have a -2 times a -2. And so that is a +4. And I have a 2 to the 3rd power. This is 2 times 2 times 2. And so we have 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Okay, and so I have 4 over 8. So you can just sort of think about what that is. So 4 divided by 8, I could simplify it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is for right at this moment. I guess we can, no, I'm going to leave it as is for right now. All right, so 4 divided by 8 minus a -4 plus 2. Okay, we need to go ahead and take care of the grouping, okay, as well. So really I could have, since that was supposed to be first anyway, but they didn't interact, it's fine. -4 plus 2 is a negative, different sign subtract, 4, 3, 2, -2. So I have a 4/8 minus a -2. We know that's actually if we KFC that, we have 4/8 plus 2 wholes. So really, this whole thing ends up being 2 4/8, or 2 1/2, or 2.5. And so here's my official final simplified answer. All right, number 11. Write the fraction as a decimal. Tell whether it is terminating or not. Okay. You can use your fraction decimal charts for these things, and they are in there. We have 2/6. We have 2/5. If you take a look at the -2 divided by 6, and we take a look at your fraction to decimal chart, let's pull this out. So here is 2/6. You have 0.3 repeating. Okay, so but this is a negative 0.3 repeating, and tell whether it is terminating or not. We're going to say no. Okay, it's not terminating. All right, 2/5. I already know 1/5 is 0.2, so 2/5 is 0.4. It's also negative. Is it terminating? Yes. Okay, so that's all you have to do for that. All right, let's go ahead and do 13, which is evaluate and simplify. Okay, we're adding fractions, so I'm looking at the denominators and noticing that they are the same, which is important, and that's really helpful. Normally, we would say make them improper, right? This one, though, let's see how this is working. We have a positive 4 and we have a negative 2, so we're going different sign, subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger, which is going to end up being positive. So we're looking at these two fractions. Can I do the 4 minus the 2 and the 4/7 minus the 2/7? I actually can on this one, so it's pretty easy to keep it a mixed number. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 4 wholes minus 2 ends up being 2 wholes. 4/7 minus 2/7 ends up being 2/7. And so there we go. We're all done. If you did an improper fraction to do that, you would just have 16/7 as a final answer if you did improper. Okay, so but this is good, and there you go. Okay, all right. Over here, number 14, evaluate and simplify. So we have some decimals in the mix now that we have to be aware of. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, because it's just addition subtraction, that's pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and change this into a decimal, which would be -2.5 because it's half. Okay, so instead of 1/4 being 0.25, it's 2/4, which is 50 cents. So we have -2.5. And then we have a positive and we have a negative. So when I have this, sometimes I like to highlight my negatives and join them together first. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do my -2.5 plus my -0.4. Add them up. And you have 9, we have 2, so we have a -2.9 because it's same sides, add and keep. And then I just need to add that to my positive, which was 0.5. Okay, and so I have negative, let me change colors for you here, -2.9. Okay, so different signs subtract. So I'm going to take my bigger number, which is 2.9, if we're ignoring stuff here. Keep the sign of the bigger. It is going to be negative at the end, so I got to be careful about that. So 2.9 minus 0.5. Okay, and my answer is going to end up being negative, so I'm going to make my note because I don't want to forget. Okay, so 9 minus 5 is 4, and 2 minus 0 is 2. Bring down your decimal, and it's a -2.4. Okay, so there's my final answer. Okay, all right, so you just have to be careful with those positives and negatives. All right, evaluate and simplify. Number 15, here we go. We have division. We don't divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal, but we can't do it with the mixed number. So we are going to have to improper fraction these. There's our trick to do that. So 3 times 9 is 27 plus 2, 28, 29. So I have a -29/9, and multiply by the reciprocal. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So I have 8/3, but I'm going to do the reciprocal. So we have -3/8. Okay. Now always ask yourself, can you cross simplify? Okay. I can here divide by 3. I have a -1 and I have a 3. The 29 and 8 I can't. So we end up with -29 times a -1. Negative times a negative is a positive 29 over 3 times 8 is 24. Okay. If I were to make that into a mixed number, we have 1 and if 1 whole is 24 over 24, we have 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 5 left over out of 24. So both of those would be an accurate answer because number 15 doesn't tell us it has to be in one form or another. All right, let's go ahead and do number 16. Evaluate the expression. A is -2/3, B is 0.4, and simplify. So here we go. Let's see, 3/5, 2/3 is going to be a repeating decimal, so I have to use fractions for these. So let's go ahead and do the rewrite. -3/5, I'm going to write it with a negative on top, times A is -2/3, times B is 4/10. Okay, which actually we could simplify down, right? Divide by 2, we could have 2/5 instead to just lower our numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the digits small. All right, and now we're just going to multiply across from left to right. So let's take care of this first. And we have 3 times 2 is 6. Negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 3 is 15. Before we do that, though, we want to ask ourselves, remember, can we cross simplify? And the answer is yes. So let's do that first. Divide by 3, we have a -1 and a 1. And so really for this one, we end up with 2/5 times 2/5. Can we cross simplify? No. So we're just multiplying straight across, and we end up with 4/25 as a final answer, okay, for number 16. All right, last one is 17 and 18 here, and then we're done with this module. So here we go, evaluating. We have a mix of fractions and decimals, but there is multiplication and things like that. So I probably don't want to deal with the decimal. So I think I'm going to change this to 1 2/10 or 12/10. Okay, which is the same thing. Circle it, tag it as C. And then let's see what's going on here. We have a B plus 0.2, which we can change to 2/10. B is written as 2/5, but I could simplify the 2/10. So let's go ahead and just leave the B as that. We have to do the parentheses first, which is C minus D. So let's go ahead, I guess we could simplify our 12/10 and divide by 2/2 and get 6/5. So that's the same thing. Now I have fifths to work with, so that's sort of nicer. So let's go ahead and toy with those numbers. There's lots of ways you could do this. I won't be able to do every way, but this is the way that I would do it. Okay. If you did another way, you're fine. We're all going to get the same answer. So let's go ahead and plug things in. I have my C minus D, which is going to be 6/5 minus a -3/5. So be careful about that. Okay. I'm going to KFC that right away so I don't forget and mess up. Okay. I have my 0.2, which I'm going to change to 2/10. And then plus B is 2/5. So let's just see where things are when we get there. Okay, I'll probably simplify this 2/10 into 1/5 instead by dividing by 2/2. Okay, so there we go. I feel pretty good about, here's what I did there, equals 1/5. So I feel good about that expression there. It's as simple as I can make it, really. So 6/5 plus 3/5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9/5. Bring everything down. We have 1/5 plus 2/5. Okay, and now order of operations, don't get tricked. I have to still take care of my multiplication here. So 1/5 times 9/5, can I cross simplify? No, so we end up with 9/25 plus the 2/5, but that's not common denominator, so I'm going to change that real quick and multiply by 5/5, and I get 10/25, and now we can add it all together. And we end up with 19/25 as a final answer. Okay, so there's that one. All right, and then the last one is 18. Again, let's analyze the problem a little bit here. It just makes life a little easier. We know that we're going to be doing d minus b first. So d is in fifths, b is in fifths, so that works out well. And then we'll figure out the rest as we go here. So d is a negative 3/5 minus b is 2/5. All right, and then I have my 1/10 out here. That can't be simplified at all. And then plus a is 4/10. We might as well just leave it 4/10 for right now, unless we can always simplify it or change it later. Okay, so let's start with that and go ahead and crank through this. So negative 3/5, KFC it. Plus a negative 2/5, same signs, add and keep. So 3, 4, 5. We actually have a negative 5/5 here. Okay, which is, if we actually solve negative 5 divided by 5, is actually just negative 1. So I can get rid of that and just write negative 1. Okay, and then we have 1/10. Okay, and plus the 4/10. Okay, so so I have the 1/10 times a negative 1. If that's a little bit weird for you, realize you're just multiplying by negative 1, which is going to, anything times 1 is itself. But in this case, it's going to make it negative. So I just have a negative 1/10 now, plus 4/10. And actually it worked well that we kept that tenths, huh? So we have a different sign, subtract 4 minus 1, keep the sign of the bigger, which is positive, and we end up with 3/10, and that is as simplified as possible. All right, and that's it for your practice test. So everything there is what you're going to see on your regular test as well. Some of the problems, you can see, like some of these are so simple, I probably won't put the answer for you. You're going to have to just be careful. But some of the bigger ones, I will put the answer in the bottom corner so you can use it to sort of like self-check and go back and see if you made a mistake. Okay, so some will have that, some won't. You'll just have to look and see. All right, let me know if you have any questions.